Feeling the sit bones into the ground. Feel the crown making its way up towards the sky. Begin to breathe deeply through your nose into your belly. Feeling the belly rise away from the spine on the inhale breath. And the belly fall back down towards the spine on the exhale. Inhale, belly rising. Exhale, belly falling. Softening the shoulders, softening the face, lengthening the spine. Inhale down the front. Exhale up the back. Soften the shoulders some more. Lift the heart. Lift the crown. Shoulders back and down. Inhaling. Exhaling. Maybe engaging ujjayi, a slight constriction at the back of the throat. Begin to feel your breath and hear your breath as it moves by the back of your throat, drawing your attention and your awareness inward. Softening the shoulders. Softening the face, lengthening the spine, chest and belly rising on the inhale, chest and belly falling on the exhale. Chest and belly rising on the inhale, chest and belly falling on the exhale. Soften the shoulders some more. Soften the face. Lift the heart. Inhale down the front. Exhale up the back. Bring the palms together in front of the heart center. And separate the palms and just have the fingertips touching. And begin to circle your fingers around. And let the palms wave a little in and out as the fingers circle around. Eyes are closed or 9/10 closed, maybe 1/10 open, just noticing the fingers circling around in front of the heart center. Continue to breathe deeply through the nose. Inhaling, chest and belly rising. Exhale, chest and belly falling. This begins to balance the left and right sides of the brain, the left and right sides of the body, the Ida, Pingala. Inhaling deeply and just circling the fingers around. Opening up those meridians from the fingertips to the arms, the heart center, and back out to the other nadis, the other energy channels throughout the whole body. 72,000 energy channels running through the whole body. Bringing them into balance. Softening the shoulders, softening the face, keeping the spine elongated. Keep breathing and circling. Breathing and circling. Breathing and circling. A bit more, inhaling and exhaling. Circling the fingers around. Following the breath. Softening the shoulders and face, keeping the spine elongated. A little bit more, keep going. Softening, allowing, breathing deeply. And bringing the palms together at the heart center. Pull the shoulders and chin back, crown up towards the sky. Inhale in 4 sniffs through the nose. Hold the breath at the top, chin lock, mood lock. Exhale out through rounded lips like you're blowing out through a hose. Inhale 4 strokes through the nose. Hold the breath at the top. Pull the shoulders and chin back. Lengthen up to the crown. Gently engage root lock. Exhale out through the hose. Inhale 4 strokes through the nose. Hold at the top, chin back, crown up, gently engage. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Hold at the top, chin lock, pull in and up. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale through the nose. Hold, chin back, shoulders back, heart open. Gently engage root lock. Pull in and up towards the third eye, towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. And now continue with this pattern. Inhaling in 4 strokes through the nose. Elongating, holding gently, engaging root lock and pulling up towards the crown. And when you feel that need to release, just releasing the breath out through the open mouth, O-shaped lips, breathing out like a little hose, and then begin again. Your next exhale, release your hands down onto your knees, palms facing up. Gyan Mudra, index fingers to thumb. Pull the shoulders and chin back, lengthen up through the crown. Shoulders back, chest open, chin back, throat open, third eye open, and just be. Soften. Let the breath return to normal. Step back into the witness. Notice the sensations. Notice the breath. Notice the sounds. Notice the quality of the air touching the skin. Begin to step back. Step back into the witness. Watching, observing, noticing. allowing, letting go of any judgments, letting go of any preferences, allowing it all to be, feel, notice, allow, release, feel, notice, allow, release, feel, notice, allow, release, feel, notice, allow, release, letting go, letting go, letting go. Bringing your palms together. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. Slowly opening our eyes. And hey, how's everybody doing? It's good to see everyone. I'm going to put you on gallery here for a second. Hi everybody. How's everybody doing? Good to see everyone. So I'm just letting you know right now that I'm recording this class today, and it's going to be on YouTube, my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be able to direct people there. So basically, it's going to be to use. I'm going to use it to promote the series that we'll be using this book for a little while, I think, just because there's a lot there as I dive into it. So just to let you know that. So if you share stuff on there, it may be seen by others, and I'm not sure if I'll keep the other classes private or open them up to something like this, or have them. I may record them and have just a private group be able to use them. I'm experimenting with different ways of doing this, so I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And again, if we get into some topics where it'd be better to have in private, we'll figure that out as well. Okay, so. Anyways, how's everybody doing? Okay? Got some thumbs up out there? All right. Awesome. Good. All right. I'm going to go back to this other view. And so I imagine most of you have not had a chance to get this book right here. This one's been on my shelf for quite a long time. I've had it, I don't know, 10 years probably. And it was probably been 10 years since I've read it. But it's a really lovely guide, and it's not the only guide. I mean, there's you can just go online and look up the Yamas and Niyamas, and you're going to get tons of stuff, and some of it quite good. I've seen some other guides on the Yamas and the Niyamas online, which are excellent, and if I get a chance, I'll put together a resource list of some of those. But this is just going to be a kind of our reference point, our starting point, and it's sort of a very kind of personalized, contemporary. She uses references to her family, references to movies. The first thing on Ahimsa, she's got the Karate Kid in there, and so she's trying to kind of bring it into a contemporary setting, which can be helpful, right? It's so that we can relate to these ancient teachings, which have been around for, well, at least a couple thousand years. They were codified in the Yoga Sutras over 2,000 years ago, but they've really been around since probably like 5,000 or 6,000 years, since we began to get civilized and come together in large groups. We've needed some of these practices to help sort out our lives, and so to some extent, these teachings have been around for a long time. And the sutras of Patanjali were kind of a moment in time where the spiritual practices started to get codified, started to get sort of written down and memorized and passed on. And so this is something which has been around for a while, and we're seeing how we can use these teachings in our everyday life now, particularly in a time of some uncertainty, right? And where our practices are maybe needed more. And it's funny. I think I've taught before, like, we practice in the good times, or the times when things are going well for us. So yes, to enhance those moments, but also so that we have a resource, we have a refuge to go to when times are more challenging and difficult, which I think most of us can attribute we're going through that right now on a number of levels: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, community, individual, society, nationally, globally. I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and so these teachings and these practices can be really so incredibly helpful, and they were really designed at a time, or they became again codified and really used at a time where the world was going through similar types of crises. We like to sort of think of ourselves as going through the most difficult of experiences sometimes, like, this is difficult. I'm not trying to belittle what we're experiencing, but humans have gone through all kinds of pretty difficult things, including pandemics before, including plagues and everything else. So it's not like this hasn't been experienced before to some degree. And these teachings really were really born out of suffering. That's where the gestalt of it comes from, is how do we process and be with the vicissitudes and difficulties of life, and how do we use them ultimately to enhance our lives, but initially to just get us out of the suffering of our lives. And so these are all really powerful practices that we can use for right now. So I think today what I'm going to do, and again, maybe we'll stop and have a little bit of conversation as well along the way, but there's a pretty good preface and introduction in this book, and I think I will read some of the passages from that, and we'll talk about it. We probably may not have time to really dive into Ahimsa, which is that first yama, right? And that's the loving kindness and nonviolence. And it's, again, one of the most important ones. We could obviously spend a whole session from beginning to end just focusing on this one yama. And so what I think is going to happen today is we're going to focus on a kind of overview of the whole thing, of the journey that we're going to go on as we dive into this. And again, this will be our basic reference, but there's lots of other references out there, lots of other things that we can pull in to our journey as we go on this journey together. And the basic idea why I chose this book of all the possible books that I could choose right now as the kind of basis for conversation, I mentioned earlier this morning in the 9 o'clock class that I feel like we're in a really good time. It's almost like the beginning of the semester, right? It's like the beginning of the school year. It's like, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the foundational aspects of the practice. And then we can hopefully grow from there. We had a really, I think, beautiful journey since March and since, through the summer with the books that we used with Pema Chodron and Michael Singer, and then eventually with Mating in Captivity and Esther Perel. And so that was a sort of trajectory of kind of going from the base to kind of ethereal and getting, and so what I think we'll do over the next couple of months is start again, right? Start again at the base, focus on the kind of base practices that will give us the foundation, also give us some skills for managing the election, the pandemic, all this sort of stuff that's going on. Will give us some insight into how to manage what's happening. And then from that place, we'll start to expand out again into some other realms where we'll have some of this foundational practice to build from. And so that's why I chose this book right now at this moment, and the intention of what I hope to do here today and also over the next several weeks is build that foundation back up again, build the understanding of why we practice, what the intention of our practice is, and how we can then use those skills to help us both in the immediate right now in any given day, how to feel more imbalanced, more present, but also to start to build a foundation to expand into the places which are more ethereal, esoteric, whatever we want to call them, but where we can expand ourselves. So I think the best way to start is to sort of kind of dive into the preface of this book. And again, you're certainly welcome to either get this book. It's not terribly. I think I got it for $13, or you can just follow along. You don't have to have the book at all, and you just follow along with the discussion. And I'm going to start right in the preface here, and the preface really starts to just kind of outline what the Yamas and Niyamas are. And I'll start off by saying that the Yamas and Niyamas are the first two of the 8 limbs of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So there's 8 limbs, and we can explore what those 8 limbs are. Asana, by the way, which is the physical postures of yoga, is the 3rd limb. So in a traditional yogic training, if you were to go into, say, an ashram in India and say, hey, I want to do yoga, they would start off with the yamas and the niyamas. And you might spend, like in a traditional setting, maybe a whole year just working with the yamas and the niyamas. And what you would do is you would study them. You would take an inventory of where you are with each one of them, and then you would start to create practices around how am I going to move towards the fulfillment of these lessons. And you would just do little things. Maybe you would spend one month on each one, right? So there's 10 months right there. There's 10 of them and just doing little practices around it. And you would actually do that before you even started the physical practice or the meditative practices of yoga. They might be interspersed in there. You might start them simultaneously a little bit. But you really wouldn't dive in to the deeper practices of yoga and meditation until you had a really pretty darn good understanding of where am I on the map, and where am I going? And that's really what the Yamas and the Niyamas are really a map. And you're finding where you are on the map and where you're trying to go. And so that's a good idea, right? to kind of have a sense of where we're going with this. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the preface, and then maybe we'll talk a little bit more. You guys can make comments or ask questions, and we'll see where it takes us. Yamas and Niyamas. These 10 guidelines sit as both a vision of the possibilities of human existence, as well as providing the practical guidance to make skillful movement to choices in our daily life. We all want to live well. Let's face it, at the end of the day, it's not how much you have or how much you have accomplished that counts. What matters is how well you have participated in your own life, both the ordinary routines and the extraordinary surprises. It's how you feel inside when you lay your head on the pillow. Does a feeling of joy and well-being accompany you to bed? Or does your head touch the pillow with thoughts of anger, bitterness, helplessness, frustration, disappointment, or whiny complaints? So right there, you can do an inventory, right? We could just stop right there. Hey, so where am I when I lie down? Am I in a place of gratitude, at peace with myself and the world as it is? Or am I somewhere on that other side, right? Or maybe I have a bit of both, but this is the way we work with the Yamas and the Niyamas. We sort of see the possibility of, being at peace, being at ease. And we're going to talk a lot about this, over the next several weeks. And then we also see where we are. And we can see, yoga in many ways is seeing reality as it is, and not hiding away or not pretending. It's that thing, you've probably, I know you've had it happen because I've had it happen thousands of times, when you ask somebody how they are and they say, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm good," right? And you're sitting there going, no, they're not, but they're, that's what they're saying, because they don't want to talk about mostly what's going on with them, or they're, and there's sometimes that's okay, because it's like, listen, in this moment, I'm caught up in this thing right now, and I don't really have the bandwidth to talk about how I really am. But what can happen when we say we're always fine, right, or I'm good, is we stop relating to how we really are. We start to believe our own BS, really. We start, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm good. I've done this, and so, and when actually, no, we're not so good. And we're really struggling on some level. And we don't ever acknowledge it. Not only are we not acknowledging it to others, we're not acknowledging it to self. We start to believe our own little storyline, And so what yoga is, in many ways, is this dive into how am I really? When I lie down in bed at night, am I at peace? Am I feeling like, okay, yeah, I had a good day, and and some things were challenging, some things were difficult, but overall, or am I not? And if I'm not, that's okay. That is really super okay, because it's also super understandable, given all the stuff that we're dealing with in life. It's just a matter of of recognition. It's actually an act of kindness to be able to recognize in ourselves, like, you know what, I'm struggling right now. That is a super act of kindness, right? And not to pretend like, oh, I'm fine, I'm just going to keep going, keep persevering, right? And, we're going to keep going in some way. But to be able to acknowledge where we are is a huge act of kindness. And we're going to get into that more. Being human is a complicated thing. We live within a myriad of confusing choices and contradictions. As human beings living among other life forms, we need to navigate our own personal needs within those of the community. As spirit hanging out in a human body, we need to live within the potential of our limitless dreams and our limited physical reality. In the midst of our indecision and confusion, these guidelines are like helping hands moving us deeper into our own authenticity and into a life that is richer and fuller than we could ever imagine, simply because we are living with more skill and awareness. This may sound easy, but it is not. How do we gain mastery over our choices when life seems to toss us around with its ups and downs, many demands, and many voices telling us what we need and what is wrong with us? How do we gain skill when we find ourselves continuing to do what we promised ourselves we would never do again? How do we gain skill when we just screamed at our child or our partner and now feel lousy? How do we gain skill when we feel stuck in a dead-end job that is sucking us dry? How do we gain skill when we just dug into the chocolate and now are beating ourselves up with messages of self-loathing? Gaining the skill to choose our attitude, to choose what we think, and to choose what we do may be the greatest adventure we can take as a human being. I really like that. It doesn't need to take, let me move ahead here. The result of a skillfully lived life is nothing less than joy. Not the kind that comes when things are going our way and disappears as quickly, but the kind that bubbles up from within. The kind of joy that comes from our own sense of mastery in life, that no matter what life brings, we are ready. Maybe there is nothing to figure out ahead of time. There is only a life to live well or not. Which are you choosing for yourself? So I thought I'd stop there. This is the kind of end of the first part, the preface, and then we'll move into an overview of the Yamas and Niyamas. But just kind of, if there are any thoughts or comments about this notion of the journey, you can kind of see the journey is to really dive into ourselves and to dive into what is really going on for me. And most of us, again, we're so caught up in what we're doing and presenting ourselves in a certain way, showing up for others in the way we want to be seen, that we very seldom really take the time to sort of say, how am I? You know, when we ask other people, how are you? And they say, fine. How often do we say, how am I? And am I willing to hear the answer? Am I willing to get quiet enough so that I can hear something besides, oh, I'm fine, right? Maybe there's a lot more going on in there. And so this is kind of the invitation that she is putting forth here with this journey into the Yamas and the Niyamas, is can we ask this question, how am I? Who am I? And start to hear the answers. Does anybody want to make a thought or comment about that? Barbara would like to make a thought or comment. Barbara?
You're going to hear my cat meowing a lot. The thing that resonates with me with what you just read was I'm quite open to asking other people how they feel. In our family, if the answer is I'm fine, that's code for I feel like shit. Particularly when my father was dying, I'd say to him, how are you, Dad? and he'd roll his eyes, and he'd sort of go, "I'm fine," and we all kind of laughed because we knew he wasn't. But that being said, I don't often ask myself, "How are you today?"
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I just don't. And so this really resonated for me because it makes me understand that I've got to spend a little more time, well, not a little, a lot more time asking myself, "How are you today?" And being okay with the answer,
Mm-hmm.
which is not always going to be perfect. It's just the way it is.
I think that's really well said, and that's again the whole premise of this aspect of this why this is the beginning of the spiritual journey is to really develop that skill of self inquiry of self reflection and also as we're going to see self love. I mean this is the foundation of the whole spiritual program and really and so these yamas and niyamas are designed to force us to do this basically and again it's like I've said in class before, the reason why most people don't do deeper spiritual practices, and this is just the beginning, right, is because that stuff is going to, sometimes answers are going to come up that are disquieting or disturbing, and they're not going to fit into our picture of who we think we're supposed to be, of how we think, it's going to bump up, and we've talked about this before, of our fitting in program. Our fitting in program is the primary program that is operating for most of us. And so the self-inquiry program often will bump into that program that's going on. And that becomes the quandary that we have to have the courage to move through. And so, right in the beginning of this book, when she jumps into ahimsa, she starts talking about courage. And so this, the spiritual path, like any path, I mean, if you go into therapy, for instance, that takes courage, right? You have to sort of say, I'm willing to try to see things differently. The way I'm operating now is not leading. If it's not leading to you lying down at night in your bed at peace, then, and that is possible, right? And then we sort of believe that, okay, that may be possible. Then what practices, what activities, what focus, even the way she talked about how can I start thinking differently? Because usually when we're lying down at night, it's our thinking mind, right, that's causing the disturbance. It's not, we're lying in our bedroom, right? If we're lucky and most of us are fortunate enough to have a safe place to lie down and sleep, a relatively comfortable place to lie down and sleep. If we're fortunate enough not to have serious ailments, right, then we're not in too much pain or physical pain or suffering. So where is the suffering coming from? It's coming from our head, right? And so what this practice is saying is we can actually start to work with that and start to rewire our thinking, rewire our way of being and seeing the world. It doesn't mean the world is necessarily agreeing or changing or stuff like that, but our relationship to it starts to change. And that's a very powerful possibility. And again, remembering that these practices, as almost all, almost all really, I would say good, I was going to say valid spiritual lineages, came out of places of fairly intense suffering, right? Fairly intense places where people, the Jewish faith, the beginnings of the Christian faith, so they all came out of places where people were having a really difficult time. And how do we how do we start to see things differently so that we can rise up and get through these times together. And part of it is acknowledging how we are, and with a loving kindness. So that's, yeah, Barbara, you wanted to say something else?
Yeah, as you were talking, my mind was talking to itself as it normally does. And I realize that I have stolen peace from myself by living in my head with my stories, which you then make into the story and the truth. But it's not. It's something that happened and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't say I have made it part of the story, part of my life, which has stolen peace
Mm-hmm.
from me.
I think I can't tell you how insightful I think that is, and that's really well said, really thoughtful. I mean, and Asteya, which is the third Yama, is about stealing basically, and one of the places we steal from is ourselves, and we steal our own peace. For instance, I'll give you an example. Recently, for me, is I've had to turn the news feed off on my phone. Okay, and I'm really glad I did. And the reason why is because I can quite easily fall into some form of despair about the state of our nation right now. And between the virus and the election and everything else, and what I'm realizing is that the news feed feeds that despair. It feeds it, and it actually almost becomes like a little bit of it's like picking a scab. It's like almost an addictive quality, right? Like it hurts. Let me itch it some more. It hurts. Let me itch it some more. Like, what the heck, And I'm watching myself do this, and I'm realizing I need to discipline. This is like a practice. It's a discipline. Don't open the news feed, okay? And so you do little tricks like turn off your news feed. So it's because the phones are designed to be addictive. I mean, there's some good research out there, to show us how addictive these things are, and so we have to start disciplining ourselves to feed ourselves stories that promote our well-being. It's not to say put my head in the sand. It's not to say I'm not getting any news. I'm just being much more disciplined about when I'm getting it, and frankly where I'm getting it too. So I'm just limiting that input so that I don't spend a lot of my mental energy just spinning around in a place of which I have no control. Right? So that's. And we can do that about the external world, but we can also do it about our internal world. I could spend a lot of time beating myself up, and we're going to talk about how we do that, which, again, I can put my hand up for that as well. And that's a whole nother way that we're not creating loving kindness and peace for ourselves. So we can lament the external world, but we can also do plenty of work on beating ourselves up too. And again, put my hand up for that. Particularly lately, I've done some of that, and so, and that just creates this not inner peace. And then the worst part of this is it's self-perpetuating, because once we get to an unpeaceful place in ourselves, it's almost impossible not to project it, And I've admitted to people that, before I went away and stuff like that, how I could just feel like I was in an unpeaceful place, and I was getting impatient. I was getting short with people. I was now dumping my lack of peacefulness onto others, which of course is not making them any more peaceful, right? So, it's insidious, and but we can reverse the train. That's we have to first forgive ourselves, recognize our humanness, recognize that we're up and down. We're not going to be up all the time. We practice the forgiveness, and then we start to take some practices of how to regain that equanimity, regain that balance, regain a sense of okayness, and recognizing there are certain things which are pulling us into not okayness, and I need to really create healthy boundaries around those things, whether they be a toxic person, toxic news, toxic environment, whatever it might be. We have to say, we might not be able to eliminate it completely. I mean, sometimes we have a relative who's not helpful in this regard, right? And so we need to have some relationship with them in some way, but we can still create boundaries. Like I'm not going to see this person, all the time, or I'm not going to be there every time they start complaining, right? And we just start to have to limit the amount of stuff that we know brings us into an unbalanced place. And as we build up a capacity for that balance, we can open ourselves up a little bit more, but we can do so more mindfully. And basically into who do I want to help? Maybe not open ourselves up to more news on our news feed, because there's really nothing we're going to do there. But maybe I can open myself up more to people who are struggling, who I can help in some way. And this is how we build this capacity for more of life, because there is struggle in life, there is suffering in life, and part of our intention is to help others, right? Serve others. But we have to really start with ourselves. This is where when we dive into ahimsa, we're going to realize that without the self-love program, we're just going to constantly get caught in some egoic struggle, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into the yamas and the niyamas. Why are we being helpful to others? Is it from a place of real, genuine compassion, because it's come from our place of understanding our own suffering? Or is it, again, part of the I'm a good person, so I need to help others so I can reinforce this egoic image of me as a good person? Is it part of the fitting in program, or is it part of the deep compassion that comes from a deep understanding of ourselves and our own kind of fragile, tenuous existence on a material plane, And if we really know that deeply, then we're going to be compassionate with ourselves and everybody else. That's kind of that first thing. So I think we have about enough time for me to kind of quickly run through the yamas and the niyamas as a whole, and then, as I said, we'll dive more into ahimsa next Friday and really just spend the whole session in that one yama, which is so crucial to our whole growth. Let me read a little bit more here. The yamas and the niyamas may be thought of as guidelines, tenets, ethical disciplines, precepts or restraints and observances. I often think of them as jewels because they are the rare gems of wisdom that give direction to a well-lived and joyful life. In the yogic philosophy, these jewels sit as the first two limbs of the Eightfold Path, which I mentioned. The first 5 jewels are referred to as yamas, a Sanskrit word which translates into the word restraints and includes nonviolence, truthfulness, non-stealing, non-excess, and non-possessiveness. The last 5 jewels are referred to as the niyamas, or observances, and include purity, contentment, self-discipline, self-study, and surrender. Many guides to ethical conduct may leave us feeling overwhelmed with concepts or boxed in by rules. Yoga guidelines do not limit us from living life, but rather they begin to open life up to us more and more fully, and they flow easily into one another in ways that are practical and easy to grasp. So again, they all sort of work. We may practice one or focus on one, but they're all kind of working simultaneously. And not only are these all working simultaneously, but they also then affect the other 6 limbs as well. And just to kind of give you a real brief overview of the other 6 limbs, so you have the asana, and then you have the pranayama, and so those are the other physical practices, in which you're probably familiar, the postures and the breathing. And then there's pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of the senses. So this is the beginning of meditation. And things like when we're doing yoga and we're like on all fours and we're moving around organically, that's the beginning of pratyahara right there, where you're sort of starting to transition from the physical body to the sensory realm. You're starting to step back, and you're not thinking about what you're doing. You're starting to sense and feel and move more into the energetic realms. The next 4 are all stages of, or next 3 rather, so that's up to the 5th one, pratyahara, are all stages of meditation and kind of enlightenment, basically. And so the first 5 kind of get you sort of ready for the next 3, which are concentration, meditation, and what's called samadhi, which is sort of a bliss state, which you're beyond the doingness, right? And so the yamas and the niyamas, which we're studying here, are basically just the kind of, let's get started. Let's look at the roadmap. Let's look at where we are on the roadmap. And let's start to kind of familiarize ourselves with the process. And then with that foundation in place, we start to layer on physical practice. And then we start to layer on the meditation practice. But we're always kind of touching base with the roadmap, right? The roadmap doesn't disappear, because we can always go back and say, well, how am I doing with my ahimsa? How am I doing with my satya, my truth? How am I doing with my surrender practice? All of which we're going to go into more, right? We're maybe doing these other practices. We're meditating, we're breathing, we're physical practices. But how's it affecting my yamas and niyamas? And if it's not affecting my yamas and niyamas, then we might want to readdress what we're doing on those other planes. We might want to say, hey, maybe this isn't. You can do, like I said, you can spend all your time you want trying to get your head to knee in physical practice, right? This is one of the things in yoga, like trying to get my head to my knee, head to my knee, head to my knee. And you might not make any progress at all in terms of your enlightenment, right? Like, if you can do a headstand, big effing deal, right? Then you can do it, because it's like, if that's not helping you with the yamas and the niyamas, then you're just doing, you're doing acrobatics. It's like, okay, be an acrobat if you want to be an acrobat, right? But you're not getting free of your suffering unless you're experiencing some movement along these lines. So this is the beauty of the yamas and the niyamas, is it sort of sets out the path, sets out where we're going, sets out the possibilities, and then we layer on the other practices to that. And with the notion of we're kind of constantly, it's a dance. We're sort of going back and forth, and we're doing the physical practice, we're doing the mental practice, and then we're touching base. How am I? Am I lying down on my bed at night at ease, right? And if I'm not, again, no judgment. I'm not, okay, that's where I am today. And it's different, right? Some days we're good. Some days we've had a nice, fulfilling day and we feel good about it. Sometimes we can have a really fulfilling day and not feel good about it, right? I've been there too, right? Put my hand up for that. That is a sign of some schism, right? Some schism in the balance program, some schism in how we're feeling about ourselves. And it's, once again, it can be a beautiful an amazing moment of realization, an amazing moment of kindness to ourselves to sort of say, everything on the external here was like lined up for me today. I was in a beautiful place. I was with people I liked. I had good food. How come I'm feeling like crap, right? That's a really important moment, and it's actually a moment of clarity and of insight, and to sort of say, okay, I'm not in the present moment, because in the present moment things are pretty good. And so what is pulling me out of that? What can I do to practice loving kindness with myself? What can I do to surrender? What can I do to be with the truth? What can I do to let go of attachment? All these things, all these tools are actually in the Yamas and the Niyamas. And so the tools are all right there. We can just start to see what one of them am I off balance with, right? And so that's the beauty of the journey that we're going to go on, is that we're going to see 10 different facets of ourselves, and we can see, oh, yeah, okay, I'm doing okay with that. Oh, you know what? I'm not doing so okay with that. And we're going to get to non-possessiveness, aparagraha. When we're having a jealous moment, or we're having an attachment to something that's, it's like we can see how that's causing us suffering, right? We can see, like, wow, I am suffering right now because I'm attached to this outcome, or I'm attached to this person, or I'm attached to whatever. And how can I, one, be compassionate with myself, but start to hold it more lightly? And as we hold it more lightly, the beauty is we actually start to appreciate it more. We start to love without condition. We start to appreciate something more because we're not expecting anything from it. Expectation is about the future. What's gonna, when are they gonna come back again? What is this project gonna give to me, right? It's more like, oh no, I can appreciate this project or this person for who they are right now. And then we start to become free. So a paragraha becomes, one, okay, how attached am I? I'm doing my, we're gonna get to a paragraha in a couple of weeks, but it's like, how attached am I? And when I actually start to work on non-attachment, I start to feel better. The other person, the other thing didn't have to do anything. They didn't have to do anything. The project didn't have to go better or worse. I just was able to start to let go of my identity being tied into that person or that thing or that project, right? And once we do that, we start to get free. This isn't, I'm not saying this is easy stuff, but it is possible stuff. This is what yoga, meditation are all here to help us to do. So in the introduction here, they go through a little bit more detail of all 10 of these things, just a few more sentences about each. But we're going to spend a whole session on each, so we'll get more time to dive into each one of those. But again, you can either think about getting this book, or you could go online and you could print out the Yamas and the Niyamas. It's not a bad idea. And again, if I find a good reference, I know I've seen one before, I will send it to you guys, and you can just it's just a kind of guide. It's like a guide, and you don't even have to have the book. You can just look at that. And that will just give you a kind of a reference point, place to maybe take down some notes. I think there will be opportunities in this journey to do some journaling, whether we actually do it together or afterwards. That can be a really nice addendum to the journey that we're going to go on. It's just to write down some thoughts about each one as we dive into it. And again, this is more in the idea of self-study, just to kind of say, all right, what did I get out of this session? What did it bring up for me? And what maybe there's just a little mantra that comes out of it, and we can work with that mantra for the week before we go to the next one. So I'm going to encourage that you maybe keep a journal handy along this way, and either write things down while we're talking, or do a little, even just 5 minutes of journaling after we meet, and that I think can be just a really helpful process to articulate our thoughts and our feelings, if not to each other, to ourselves. Right? I mean, this is the main recipient of this whole thing is ourself, not our egoic self, but that true sort of tender divine self, and we're trying to kind of write to them, write to that aspect of ourselves, or write from that aspect of ourselves to the egoic self, which is the egoic self is the one that gets upset, angry, depressed. The spiritual self is fine, and it's basically we can try to start to have a conversation back and forth with that spiritual self, that egoic self. How cool would that be? That's super cool. And so we'll see where all this takes us. Would anyone else like to add anything or say anything about this journey we're about to embark on, or anything that I've shared today? Everybody's good? Everybody's feeling awesome. Great. Feel free to email me with any thoughts. Text me, email me. If there's something that seems confusing or you want to make sure it gets addressed, and we'll try to include that in our conversations, or I'll try to address them directly with you. And keep coming. I've got some classes this weekend. Just keep checking. The newsletter's been a little delayed. I'm being kind to myself and not pushing myself too much, but I think the newsletter will go out this afternoon, and so you can know where to find me. Anybody's had any questions, just let me know. So let's just come into an easy seated pose for a moment. Feeling the sit bones into the ground, the crown up towards the sky. Take a deep inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Bowing the head to the heart center. A moment of reverence and gratitude for that Sat Guru, that teacher within, guiding, protecting, illuminating. May peace be in your heart. May light be in your heart. May love be in your heart. Peace to all, light to all, and love to all. Namaste. Namaste, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here today. Have a beautiful rest of your day and the rest of your weekend. I look forward to seeing you soon.